Right, the most nervous time that I'm waiting for, well, the second really. This is the first nervous time based on the abilities of Odin. So that's what we're going to go over in this video, the abilities of Odin. The second part will be how the champion plays out, because I will take this as being on paper, but when it comes to the usage of the champion, what are going to be the numbers? Am I going to be happy with the way that they've done my boy, or my old boy, or old father, whatever it is? The fact is, a mechanic, as commands here, taps into the Odin Force to gain a variety of powerful buffs, improving the other abilities for each of the unique buffs. Odin also takes advantage of bulkier opponents by scaling his damage with his opponent's max health. To strengthen himself, Odin can enter Odin's sleep between fights to receive bonus buffs. To strengthen his allies, he can grant Asgardian relics to his allies. Look, with this whole situation of this champion's playstyle and as well what he does, potential damage, it's always going to be compared against Cosmic Ghost Rider, and this is going to be the main thing. This is one character I would say that if it's put in game should be better for damage output than Cosmic Ghost Rider, just based on the fact that he is a god. Could we say there's other gods in game? Kind of. Could we say that this should be the most powerful of the gods? Of course. I mean, you know, we've got, as I said in previous videos, Hercules is yet to come out for the community vote, so the champion choice, so we need to see like how that's going to function. The mechanic of the Giant Slayer, which I guess plays into the narrative of his fights against Mangog, Frost Giants, and various different other characters, is going to be important to, like how it says here, like sources direct damage that scales his opponent's max health. This gives him a much easier time against tankier opponents with large health stats. And this is the problem, I think, with the Odin's sleep and how it's really described, because it says that at the start of Odin's first fight as an attacker and every fight as a defender, gain Odin's sleep's effects. When Odin's teammates win a fight at the start of Odin's next fight, gain Odin's sleep effects. Odin's sleep grants the following effects: Fury buff and armor buff, so to these values, which is handy. It gives like more of an option for you to go up against certain node interactions. So that's pretty unique and pretty amazing, especially like if you're looking for an option to take on Havoc. And like normally it's the case with Havoc, you've got to have a champion that's got an armor up buff. What if you had a champion that's able to give an armor up down the line, which I think is very important. But this doesn't necessarily reflect your this reflects like your teammates with it, rather than it being you, and that's a little bit of a red flag thus far. However, though, what is singularly for this champion, Odin, and it says like the Odin Force, when either Odin or opponents are knocked down, gain an Odin Force charge. With 2 Odin Force charges, the next attack with the Odin Force effect will consume all Odin Force charges and trigger a bonus effect. So yeah, it seems great that you're generating all these different kinds of buffs, and I hope that means that the damage output is going to be pretty wild. It looks like you have to keep up like more of a active striking effect. So the more times that you're kind of closer while in striking distance, or kind of like, you know, rapidly damaging, you pause the duration of Odin's personal buffs. And whether or not there could be something that increased buff duration, I don't know if there's like synergies out there that increase like fury buff duration. So for example, having something on a synergy team that's going to bolster and boost, I think it's Aegon synergy. If you've got one other champion with there, it could be that you've got Angela, you could mean that your fury buff, if you're getting it per se with Odin, that you could like increase that duration, increase your damage, and therefore not feel that you're losing out if you're not keeping up with hitting the opponents. And at this point, it's hard to get the idea of the narrative of the playstyle, especially with throwing in SP1. If the Odin Force is active, then you gain a Bulwark buff. On activation as well, you get a True Strike buff, ignoring whatever it is. That's just part of like auto block evasion. We all know how True Strike works. But having, let's say, those 2 buffs there, or those 2 unique buffs, then kind of plays into the narrative of the SP2. So you have to throw the SP1 to then go and throw the SP2. Because on activation, pause all the buffs, but as well, you do direct damage. And it's burst direct damage each Odin unique buff. So say you got 4 on there, each doing 2.75% of the opponent's max health up to 11,600. So there could be, providing there's some good yellow numbers, a good way of then kind of like, you know, building it up. And maybe it's a case you've got to do, I don't know, like further things in order to ramp up the amount of buffs that one can do. Even more so, say if you've got Heimdall on your team, like Heimdall, Angela. Oh, hang on. Heimdall, Angela, Aegon, Odin. Could be quite good there with that, with getting those. And maybe Hela as well, in order to get the, not Hela, sorry, Magic, in order to get the other buff. Oh, the more I think about it, the more you kind of go like, oh, this could be some good damage right here. If you kind of go into intercede and as well go into grab the extra buffs that synergy gives out. And that's given me a lot of thoughts, and as well, like when I get to review this champion, I'm pretty excited for what I can do. But as well, I've got to be real on what we see, and sometimes it may not be a case that this is looking to be the greatest. However, though, I am an optimistic fella. And especially when it comes to the SP3 of what you add on. So you get an extend buff, increasing the duration of buffs by 25%. So that's good. And as Kabam said here, for increased damage in longer fights, Odin can use SP3 attack to gain copies of his Fury and Armor buffs, granted by Odin Sleep. But for other buffs, notice that Odin's max stacks that prevent him from stacking bonus buffs. So yeah, okay, cool. And you gain a copy of them, right? So you're going to be able to put out some massive amount of damage. I am pretty excited for this, but I don't know if it's going to be very reliant on synergies, which could be a bit of an issue depending on the team that you want to take into certain content. But in any case, this champion as a singular host to be like Apocalypse, in that he is a conduit for improvement for other characters, can really play into you bringing this in. You've got to be honest, this probably will bolster and make Cosmic Ghost Rider just the outer reaches of just like God tierness, beyond God tier, kind of like, yeah, Super Saiyan tier, like even just, I don't know, just not even on the spectrum. He's just broken the spectrum if you're giving things like an aptitude buff. Like it's an increase. Was it like a permanent? It's an indefinite aptitude buff. Wow, with that pre-fight and cross-fight ability, Jesus. Yeah, you just have that on and everything's just going to be like pretty darn nice. As well, preventing loss of 18% of max health from a single source. Stormbreaker each fight gain an indefinite shock resist buff. That's impressive enough as it is. Yeah, I think that's going to be amazing. Even to have this character in your team to be like Apocalypse, it's there. But maybe like as a champion that can be very helpful against certain nodes, and as well be a bolster to take into things like potentially Abyss of Legends. Definitely for a lot of content, and especially when it comes to just wreaking havoc in Act 6, Act 7 in general, and as well in anything you can put your mind to content-wise. And I guess this is the problem with a signature ability, because it's more of an interaction perspective. If you go into any type of content, you have to be very reliant on the enemy champion getting buffs, and that's the thing that's kind of like a bit concerning to a degree, in that if you've got enemies that have fury buffs, then you get to replicate said buff. And that's why I'm like, well, I understand that that's the case, but then it's like, well, Kabam will clearly make content that doesn't include having any like champions that gain things like fury buffs or armor up. And like a lot of this stuff, like it's what will be the case? It's like cosmics all the time. Cosmic champions seem to be the ones that benefit from fury buffs, armor up buffs, and stuff like that. And it's very rarely that you come across certain champions that have visible, let's quote the word there, visible resist physical, resist energy, or even critical resistance buffs. Yes, it could be in the kit, but you don't see it kind of visible that much, which technically would be the true buff rather than part of the abilities buff or even passives, because at the end of the day, these are true buffs, not passives or passive effects, however they're meant to be described. But yeah, the point is, if you do face off against certain champions that have fury and armor, then great, you're going to be outputting a lot of damage with the awakened ability. But apart from that, it's just, I don't see it like a huge amount of point to it. One thing that's pretty cool is dexterity. Let's face it, most of us have dexterity on. And if Odin dodges the attack performing a SB2, he can pause the dexterity position. So that's great. Pausing that effect will be like amazing. Not great against certain champions that punish buffs, but you know, that's it. You not normally would take champions like this against things like mystics, because it's a cosmic versus mystic. Either way, that kind of like that synergy with Heimdall probably means that you don't really need to bring in Angela or Hela, depending if you want to have any kind of boost to the synergies, which there are actually some pretty cool ones in any case. So Hela and Angela, Thor and Hela, plus 5% buff duration for each fight the team has won. We're playing into this narrative, aren't we? That, you know, we have to have them on the team to kind of like go further and all that stuff. Right, Battle of the Realms, for each living teammate gain plus 5% attack rating. I mean, that's good right at the start, but again, that kind of like, is that singular or does it need Mephisto? Might need Mephisto. No, it doesn't need Mephisto. For each knocked out teammate gain, so as you kind of lose, you gain. I think that's actually pretty cool. Mephisto will probably come into that team very, very nicely. Also, I plan to bring in Heimdall into this. And does Heimdall gain anything? There it is. Odin once per fight. Heimdall will intercede on Odin's behalf, dash back and hold seconds, gain a perfect block buff. Oh, interesting. Increasing perfect chance for 10 seconds. Oh, right, okay. I was hoping that would be more of a permanent thing. Yeah, it's good. But if it lasts 10 seconds, then you have to try and keep that pause, and you only get that once per fight. It's alright. And I will play into that narrative, like Heimdall's indefinite Fury Up buff, Fury Up precision and aptitude buffs gain from charging a heavy attack, gain plus 15% potency. Good. It's nice to see some love for Heimdall. But that's the thing. Like, would you play into the Heimdall synergy more, especially from like the permanent Fury buff? I think that's going to be a lot of value there. Whether or not you choose Hela or Angela, it's going to be kind of cool. So yeah, does that kind of like improve things? Yeah, I mean, you bring in Hela, you get buff duration for each fight the team has won, or plus 5% buff potency for each fight the team has won. So that's good. It kind of, yes, it plays into the narrative of the team. Would it be a case that I'll use Heimdall, Angela, Mephisto, Odin, and then one other champion that's maybe specific to the boss interaction? Maybe. That seems like a pretty good solid team, but also there are other types of interactions that you could put together. You know, looking at this one here, the one with Hela in particular is a bit maybe a bit better than the Angela one. But that's only because plus 10% attack rating when fighting the final node of the quest. So that's kind of alright, but it kind of isn't at the same time. It's up to you, like, how you play at that, and I'll be interested to pair off and kind of like do different kind of interactions with that. But I want to reserve judgment without saying like, oh my god, this is going to be brilliant, or going, oh god, this could be bad. It's just kind of go, there are some positives to this, but also some negatives to what I'm reading. And the positives are that I can see a big punch and crunch when it comes to gathering the buffs, provided you've got the synergy teams together that are going to improve this. And as well, the way that the champion does have some slight utility with True Strike. But it's just going to be, for me, building up that SP1, SP3, and then firing from SP2 to see the maximised appeal of the damage and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't, then it's going to be pretty disappointing. But as well, the way that Odin's sleep works and how it's more beneficial to others as opposed to Odin, I'm not sure if I'm a massive fan of for the champion itself. But from a team aspect, a team narrative, and playing into the way that Apocalypse works for mutant champions, then hey, big thumbs up. But it's just going to be a case of seeing what is the damage potential, what are the big yellow numbers, and as well, is this going to match up on the same scale as the Cosmic that is absolutely god tier, like Cosmic Ghost Rider. So that's just my thoughts there. I'm slightly positive, but a little bit apprehensive about the situation of Odin. Some things I like, some things I really need to play out for myself. So yeah, looking forward to doing lots of content on this champion. And that's been a video. But yeah, make sure to check out some recently posted content that's located up there. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you all later on for the live stream. The update should go live, so there might be a whole load of content that I'm going to be putting out today. We'll have to see. Thanks for tuning on in. See you soon. Bye-bye.